Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter and that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 1. It's called The Stargazer. So, full spoilers for the episode. The title, of course, is a bit of a double meaning. The ship, the Stargazer's here, but there's also a lot of talk of Picard gazing at stars longingly. What's out there, the mysteries, the final frontier, blah blah blah.
Let's see what's out there.
Yeah, I do have thoughts on this episode. Season 1, I think, was a very uneven show right from the get-go, but then kind of went down the toilet seat in the last few episodes. I know Tara doesn't feel as strongly negative as that, as she tends not to with Star Trek. So I was very curious as to how I was going to feel about this. But how did you feel about the Season 2 premiere?
Thought it was great.
Shocked. I'm shocked.
Look, I like to be positive about things, okay? I enjoyed the show. I thought I like the character introductions that we get, reintroductions, because, you know, it's been like 2 years.
I thought you were just because you paused right after you said character. I thought you were going to say, I like the character. And I was like, Picard? I mean, I thought, yeah, I figured you did.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I like the big mystery that's been set up in the beginning here. I like the cues back. I like that a lot. And even though the Borg was all of season 1, I'm really intrigued by this Borg story. And yeah, it was a fun start to the new season. I will say, Sir Patrick Stewart is very old, and it's really distracting how old he is in this, because he's even older than, you know, obviously the last one, and each year he gets closer to, I don't want to say death, but like reaching level 100 is you know, it's his cadence is slow. He's not very commanding when he's on a ship.
Put it this way, there's a reason why they shot season 2 and 3 back to back. Like, season 3's already shot, and I think and this is a really morbid thing to think, but part of that might be, just to make sure Patrick Stewart's still fit and healthy to actually do the show. Yeah.
But like, there's some storylines in this. Like, I understand why they want to explore this part of his character, but there's some storylines in this where I'm just like, come on, he's
too old for that.
He's ancient.
No, I felt there's a scene obviously with him and Guinan in this episode, and I just felt kind of sad watching both of them in this scene because they're both so old. And Whoopi Goldberg,
I mean, obviously Whoopi, she looks very different now.
Yeah. She's obviously she's a lot bigger, and I'm not like, you know,
yeah,
whatever,
exactly, whatever.
Yeah, but
I really wish they didn't address it also in this. Like, they should have just given a reason why she's changed her appearance. Like, just don't talk about it.
You know, it's kind of like watching Die Hard 4 and Bruce Willis is bald now, and it's like, it's fine that he's bald, but it's like, this isn't John McClane anymore. He's not John McClane. Like, John McClane looks like John McClane, and now he just looks like old Bruce Willis. And he wasn't even that old when he made the choice to transition to just being bald all the time. But yeah, it's something that Tim's brought up a lot actually recently about horror movies, because there's been a lot of horror movies that have brought, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis back. They did Sally in the new Texas Chainsaw, and he said it just kind of makes him feel kind of sad watching these movies where they're like bringing people out who are in their 70s or 60s to like be in these movies where it really doesn't work that they're this old, and it's something that just kind of feels like you're forcing this because you want to do something with these actors whilst there's still time, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it fits the story or whatever. Like, if this was like a quiet drama with Picard just on the chateau, and just like people came to visit him and they just reminisced about old times, and the drama was just on the, like, but no, it's an action show, and we've got like Borg Queen threats and cues around, and there's big galactic stuff going on.
Somebody get Picard a seatbelt. Like, you know, they're going to be thrown around on the ship, and he's well, I guess maybe he's a golem now, so he's, you know.
Yeah, I guess the feeling I would describe the scene with Picard and Guinan, how it made me feel, was just that I felt like, And I'm sure they were both happy to do it because, you know, Whoopi Goldberg's a big fan of Star Trek.
Yeah, I watched when Patrick Stewart went on The View and he asked her, on there, I don't know if it was, she had no idea that he would do that at that moment, but it was a sweet moment. And she is around and she's still, people watch her all the time, and people know she's from the next gen and she was close to Picard. It makes sense to bring Guinan in.
Yeah, so she's a fan of the Star Trek. Patrick Stewart obviously wanted to do this show. The reason why it exists is because he was kind of open to coming back and having a final chapter. But so I know this isn't really the case, but I still had this feeling of these two poor people are being dragged onto a set to try and recapture something they did 30 plus years ago. And it made me feel kind of sad. And I know that's not how they feel about it, which does make it better, don't get me wrong. But I still kind of felt it while I was watching the scene. Regardless of how what their motivations are and why they want to do it. And it just made me feel a little bit sad. And I felt a little bit sad watching this episode because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I felt sad when, Marina Sirtis showed up on the last season also, even though, obviously she looks fine and stuff, but she's done so much to her face. Even that just makes me sad. Riker still looks great.
Riker's Jonathan Frakes has aged very gracefully, I have to say.
He still has energy and stuff.
Yeah.
And John Delancey in this also, I think, is really good. He looks and feels like Q. Obviously he looks much older, but there's a good reason for it. And
I mean, it's not that good a reason, but we'll get to that. But no, Frakes and Lancey, who plays Q, they still, well, obviously I'd still describe them as older men now. They feel more like, that 50s, early 60s older man who is still commanding and still is at the top of his game mentally and doesn't feel like he's talking slow. It feels a little bit different. It's this thing here, and I feel it with Harrison Ford now. They're dragging him out to do another Indiana Jones, and in the last one, which was over a decade ago, he felt like he was a bit too old to be doing this. So I'm just this is getting silly now that we're doing this, and not so much with Star Trek, but part of the problem with movies, I think, is that we don't really have movie stars the way there used to be movie stars, so they're kind of clinging to the ones that are now really old, because I don't think any of the newer stars, quote unquote, have kind of filled that void of these bankable, big, larger than life names that once were on cinema screens. As much as we might like certain actors, like a Tom Holland, he's not really filling the shoes of a young Harrison Ford or anything like that. And I don't think anyone's going to argue Chris Pratt's filling the shoes of, Kurt Russell.
Well, maybe for a while, but now he's kind of, I don't want to say hot water, but people are, I think, over Chris Pratt, which I'm glad.
Anyway, so it's a weird thing to sort of talk about, but I felt kind of sad, and it almost just made me and this is weird to say because it's Picard, and obviously he's the one I like the most because it is Picard, but part of me thought, it would almost be I think 7 of 9 obviously is much older than she was in Voyager, but she's not she's still spry, she's still jumping around and kicking and shit. She doesn't feel old, she's just older, right? There's a key difference there. And I'm just let 7 of 9 lead this new crew and just let that be the show. I think it would just feel like it made more sense.
Yeah.
From a logistical point of view. But yeah, with that out of the way, which it's a bit of a cloud over the whole thing. But with that out of the way, we have a really overused device mechanically on TV, which is we're going to show you part of the end of the episode at the start and then go 48 hours earlier. TV uses that far too much. And
I thought it was unnecessary also.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. It's especially, I'd say 9 times out of 10 when it's used, it's unnecessary. More often than not, the reason why it's used, and it's funny we mentioned Chris Pratt because that movie was in Tomorrow War, did this. It was none of our action happens until, in that case it was halfway through. In this case, because it's an episode of TV, all the action stuff was the last 5 minutes. And they're shit, we have to put something exciting at the start. We'll just put part of the action at the start.
That's the thing, we know what New Trek is. We know it's going to go into action. And plus it's season 2. You don't have to tell us promise us action later.
Yeah,
well, we're here for Picard, so
it felt unnecessary and forced, and it kind of padded.
And it didn't really change my perspective of what happened. Like,
no.
Okay, maybe I know like who caused it and like one other detail, but for the most part, like it didn't really change anything.
If anything, all it did was kind of spoiled that like 4 or 5 of our characters were going to be together on the ship. Where, well, this is the stupid thing. We see Rios in a Starfleet uniform capturing this ship in this opening little segment, but then it still does the big introduction to, oh, where's he now? And it cuts to him on the ship and he's got the suit on, and I'm like, yeah, you already showed us this in the opening scenes. That you can't treat this like a big reveal now in your music.
It's like they've taken away the opening text crawls or not crawls, but like the narration of setting up the world, and instead they're replacing it with this. But I don't like this either. But yeah, this was not necessary.
Yeah. So.
And I like the opening scene on Chateau Picard, which by the way was delicious.
Yeah, but I bet your label didn't get like hologrammed or like digitally scanned.
I was a little
onto
disappointed that label seemed a lot cooler.
But I'll be honest. The episode, so it started me off on the wrong foot with that weird like 40 hours later thing, and then it did something that I don't jive with at all for multiple reasons. Which is this weird like romantic tension between Picard and Irish lady Laris. So
you didn't like that they
almost kissed?
No, that Romulans. Well, first of all, the other Romulan guy I guess got space cancer and is no longer around. Yeah, which was kind of a bummer because like I liked his character in the first season.
Yeah,
I liked her character too. Also,
how long has he been dead? And now she's like, "Hey, Picard."
A year and a half. They say a year and a half.
So a year and a half later, she's like, "Hey, I know that this is kind of weird because we lived with you as a couple, but now I'm thinking I want to move on to some Picard."
Well, it's not just that, but like there's this really nice, convenient loophole of Romulan, like culture traditions of the next love is even more intense, which seems kind of like a dangerous policy because like if you meet somebody new but you're already married, like. Do you guys risk it? Do you just like knock off someone so that you can have an even more intense relationship and love even further?
Is it more intense naturally, or is it just a case of like that's what they say? It's not. I mean, it's just a said thing rather than.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yeah, if they biologically sort of like shifted into like third gear, as it were.
Yeah. I do like a culture that celebrates that you've had, multiple loves so that, we can get rid of that stigma.
But no, I'm saying like if it's a culture that actually like biologically your sexual drive or organs or whatever like shift into like a new gear, then that would actually give them motivation to kill lovers off so that their next one is even better.
I guess it does make sense for Romulans though. They're skeevy.
Uh-huh. So yeah, multiple problems with this. One, it just felt forced and weird because this wasn't a romance last season, so it felt out of nowhere to me. And then the second thing is that there is an age difference here.
There is. I mean, obviously she's not like, she's not that young. And Picard, like, we know Picard, like, if everything goes as planned, he's got at least 20 years left. But like, there's no way Picard is like, I mean, he's so old. He doesn't care about like sex stuff anymore. Or maybe because he's like reflecting on this like history of why he never had a true love, or why that part was never really fulfilled, or why he never felt it was necessary for him. Like, that seems to be what the season is going for.
Yeah, he's reflecting on stuff, but like my problem wasn't even less about why Picard would be into it. I mean, that's a discussion to have. It was more just, there's this moment where he almost kisses her, and I just kind of felt like this is like an 80-something-year-old man and like a 45-year-old woman, and it just felt like this doesn't feel like a real almost kiss moment. I don't feel any chemistry here. Well, I don't feel anything from this. I actually
thought they had good chemistry in the first season.
Yeah, but not romantically.
Like no, not romantic chemistry. But like I liked both her and her husband's character in the first season, and then they were hardly in it. And I thought that was a shame because I liked that trio.
Yeah. And like, I can respect the idea that maybe she feels something for him and he's going to say no because that's just not who I am, and that ship has sailed. I mean, he even uses that line later when he's talking to Guinan. But it felt so out of nowhere and weird, and I didn't like. And when they started talking about it that way, when they're sitting there together, and then she's getting all like close, and she's talking about how the next romance is even stronger and more cherished than the last. I'm like, so you're telling him that you're looking forward to husband number 2 because husband number 1 is gone. It's time to move on and do
who
whatever.
knows if this was even number 1.
That's true. Yeah, maybe Picard's like number 5.
This might be, number 47. And
if she's on number 47, then she's going through them pretty quick.
Sometimes it happens, yeah. I don't know how long Romulans live. If they're like Vulcans, it could be like 200 plus years.
Oh, true. But even at that. Even at that, 47 still like one every few years.
Sounds like she has some commitment issues, or like you said, they just like to kill each other off so they can have a more intense romance in the next one.
Because 47 and I don't know if anyone's ever gotten to 47. It sounds like a bit of a world record. But
well, for marriages, sure. But for loves?
Oh, for love, sure.
Yeah, 47 in a lifetime seems all right.
But for marriages, that would be for most. Assuming you're doing it mostly in your prime years, that would be like one a year for a long time. You'd probably slow down in your 50s or something.
Yeah, maybe. Who can say how the heart works for people?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. The kissing thing was also like I heard someone describe it as like seeing your parents kiss or something. Like, what happens, but you don't really want to see it. Like, you don't really want to see Picard do that because that's never really been his thing. He's never really been he's not the Kirk of Next Generation, other than he's the captain. He's never been he had that, semi relationship with Vash. And there is an episode you haven't seen yet where he really does like have a full on relationship with somebody, and it is very satisfying. And like, if he brought that up, it would make sense to me. But like, yeah, that's why I don't have a true love. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And he and Crusher have like a will they won't they thing that does sort of get addressed throughout the seasons. Not so much in the movies, they kind of ignore it, but I don't know. So like, I don't know, like this I can see why they want to explore it, but there is like a get out free card if you wanted to play it, if you just plays the Inner Light episode. Which is not an episode you've seen yet, unfortunately.
Okay, out there. Jeez. Yeah. I don't know. This did not work for me. And then like the plot kind of kicks in, and we get the anomaly in space. It's a lot of those in Star Trek. But there's like a sort of rip in space, and it's a Stargazer, which is now captained by Rios, who's in a Starfleet uniform. And kind of like just over the course of the episode, he kind of is joined by multiple other people. He calls in Jurati, who's hanging out with android twin chick from season 1. Now, obviously all these characters are coming back, but did it feel like to you that this was mostly just sort of trying to forget that season 1 existed for the most part? Because I felt like it was weird that Picard and everyone were so buddy-buddy with the Federation again to me. And also the fact that there was like almost no reference. I say almost, there was a slight reference at one point, but there's almost no reference to the fact that Picard is technically in an android body right now.
I suspect it's going to come up. Like, Q's got to say something about it at one point. I mean, Jurati kind of makes a joke, like, you look absolutely positronic. That's like the only mention, I think, of it in the whole episode.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I did appreciate, like, I know, like, when Jurati shows up and she's getting hit on by that guy who looks like the alien from the motion picture, whose species I can't think of, but like the bald aliens.
I recall.
He's hitting on her, and she's like saying, hey, you don't want to be with me, I'm a real mess. I was an alien like took over my brain and made me kill my boyfriend and, and stuff. And I appreciated that, because I was thinking, like, why is she not in prison? I couldn't quite remember. So like, it was a little bit awkward exposition, but like I still needed it. So I appreciated that it was there.
Yeah, he calls her in, and then it just so happens that 7 of 9, who's using Rios' ship from last season,
the La Serena,
is fighting some bad guys and ends up getting involved as well. So she ends on the ship with them too. And eventually this ship comes out because there's a message that says, we want Picard, or save us or help us, Picard, right? So, but it's named Picard. So they bring in Picard, and Picard's like, I'm too old for this shit, and she's like, no, they asked for you specifically. Here's a badge. So it's like, all right.
Yeah, I like that scene actually, where like it's some other admiral who comes in and like talks to him. Like, we get a nice representation of Starfleet versus the first season, where Starfleet were all bad roles and cursing at Picard. So it's nice to get like, a good Starfleet admiral like come in and sit down calmly and have a conversation.
I forgot about the swearing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was so stupid.
Yeah. Sheer effing hubris.
So Picard goes out, and this is towards the later part of the episode, but because we'll go back and talk about the Starfleet stuff, but he goes out to the ship, and it's a Borg ship of some kind. It's not a cube, but it's a Borg ship of some kind.
It's not a cube.
No.
It's Borg design. They must have assimilated H.R. Giger, because that is a vagina.
My mind did not jump to vajayjay, but
what? Your mind always does. I'm not the person who brings this up.
What? How dare you?
If something is slightly vagina shaped, you always mention it.
That's not true. That's not true.
I watched your first playthrough of Elden Ring.
That was vagina shaped though. That was actually vagina shaped.
It was like a crystal.
It was. Look, I'm doing running commentary on a game. I'm just trying to be funny, okay? I'm looking for things to riff on and
this one like had a little
jokes.
bead in the middle of it, and like, okay, they're not hairs, but like some sort of spiky things around it.
Yeah, maybe that was throwing me the spiky things coming out of the side.
I'm just saying, there's a reason why Picard's so interested in this thing.
It's the spiky things. Is this like based on the vagina from the movie Teeth? Is that
That's a good movie.
It's exactly what you think it is.
The
everyone.
vagina dentata.
Go check it out. Yeah, so it's a Borg ship. Basically, it's a Borg message that is hinting that they want to join the Federation, which. This is one of the little details that kind of like separates, like just one of the little creative choices from this and like older Trek, is that it leads to a discussion in like a meeting room, not unlike the observation, meeting room and TNG, right? And Picard's sitting there, 7 of 9's there, Rios is there, Raffi's still back in Starfleet, I think, at this point, or she's on another ship.
She's on the Excelsior, which is at that spot.
Yes, it shows up there because a lot of ships. Because Winston was the Borg. There's like Starfleet.
There's an armada all of a sudden. Yeah.
But and they're debating like the pros and cons. Like, do we take this like request to join the Federation seriously, and should we entertain the idea? And 7 of 9's dead set against it. Picard's kind of saying, well, maybe we should consider it, and they're kind of weighing it up, and Jurati's kind of weighing it up, and. We I've seen many scenes now. I'm deep into season 5 and Next Generation. I've seen many scenes at this point of the characters debating issues around the table. It's a major facet of that show. And what really bugged me about this scene is that, okay, all right, so this is like a classic Star Trek TNG style scene where they're sitting debating this thing. And the entire time... And I get that they're in red alert because there's a Borg ship out in front, but there's these like red rimmed lights around like all the doors and like windows that are constantly flashing red the entire scene, and I'm like, oh my god, calm down, just let it be a quiet debate. But everything in the lighting and the camera is telling me this is tense, this is high stakes, everything's going on. I'm like, no. Let them just have the conversation and let the writing, let the debate of the ideas and whether or not they should consider the Borg a race and should they be allowed into the Federation. Can we start to trust a new version of the Borg? or something.
I can't say that I really noticed that like you did. I will say like a lot of the camera movements are always like in motion to try to keep the action high. And yeah, like if the red light was just flashing as like this ominous thing that's still going on in the background, like, but the camera was still, you probably would think differently.
Obviously it's a problem that Discovery has as well, that it's just over-directed. They're just trying too hard to be stylish, but... I
was thinking one thing that I wish they kept from, like the Enterprise D days were the carpeted hallways. Because, now it's all slick and shiny, but I keep thinking, like, the people, their shoes are squeaky and they're going to slip, and why not just keep the carpet? Like, you got drones to clean that stuff. Like, just, it just makes more sense to have carpet. It's a soft landing. No one's, like, scraping anything if they fall.
The carpet's a little bit weird to me, actually. It's one of the few choices in the TNG days that I thought was a bit odd, because it makes it look more like a set than an actual ship to me.
Well, yeah, the joke is that it's like a Hilton or something in space. But I like the carpet. Like, I know the shiny floors are pretty and it looks nice, but I think the carpet's more practical. Hey, you got good traction.
I don't need it to be shiny. Like, I'm all for some matte. Give me a matte.
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be like a tan beige carpet. It could be, like a nice gray, dark gray.
Again, it doesn't have to be carpet, but it could be something a bit more like carbon fiber or something.
We don't want anything that hurts, because people fall a lot in the show. The fireworks come out of the panels and people are falling everywhere. There's green blood on the walls. You just got, I think, something soft makes sense. Like if I were serving on a ship and I saw the squeaky floors, I'd be like, well, I hope we don't get too many red alerts or anomalies. I want to scrape my elbows.
Yeah. I think the argument I would have is that actual ships, planes, and spaceships, meaning the shuttles and things, they don't have carpet.
No, but we've already had carpet, so now they're going back.
True. I don't mind it not being carpet. I think the design of the bridge on this
I think it's a mistake.
New Stargazer's fine.
Actually, yeah, I like the look of the Stargazer a lot, and I like the bridge looks good. I like Rios like in the captain's chair smoking a stogie the whole time. I thought that was weird in season 1, just because I wasn't expecting like people smoking in the future. Same with Raffi when she has her like crack pipe or whatever. But I like the look of Rios, like with the confidence of being a captain in the uniform in the chair. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, the visual style of the show is basically the thing I don't like that much, as far as like, I think the design of the bridge is fine, but they have to have constant lights and stuff, and like obviously people joke about the lens flares from the recent movies, but I will say the overall aesthetic of the bridge on the Enterprise, and that, or maybe even a better example would be the new version of the Enterprise that they introduced in Discovery season 2, with because they're the one that they're going to use in the new show.
You mean the one with Captain Pike?
Yes.
Gross.
Like that had like a nice sort of retro future feel to it, which I think I like a bit more than this ultra slick, everything's made by Apple kind of look that a lot of these like sci-fi ships tend to have these days. I like a bit more industrial as well, if that's a route. That's something that the Expanse does, that where everything feels very like more grounded and like it's a lived-in ship kind of thing.
You like scaffolding.
Yeah, or Alien, right? Which is like everything's sort of wet and grimy because it's just this industrial ship. It's
just condensation everywhere.
Yeah, it's not this state of the art like iPod looking.
Well, Trek has sort of always been that though, and this is just future.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's
version
why
of that.
That's why I'm saying like I think as it gets more sleek, it starts to feel very separate from its roots, and part of that's just because of the time period that the older shows were made in. But like, I kind of miss just something a bit more I don't know, just, and again, like I say, I would be completely fine with this design, honestly. I think I would rather the camera stop moving as much and they stop just blinding me with lights as much as possible, because I think that is what would just make it feel a bit more, just calm down a little bit. I feel like calm down, because one of the little directing choices that I really hated, because it felt like a really generic moment, is at the start of the episode, like Picard has like a dream / memory of his mother, talking about the stars or whatever, and there's all these like speed up and slow down quick cuts of like things, as like he's like sort of like jumping through the memory,
sort of like 90s horror thriller. That's what going on.
It had that kind of vibe, and I'm like, why is it cutting around? Like, it just like I think there would be more strength in this as a quiet scene of her just sitting down in one simple 2-shot and having this conversation, than all this like over editing to try and make it feel like it's really exciting. And it's like, stop it, it's not supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be an intimate moment. Let it feel intimate. The direction does not match the tone that the scene is really supposed to have, which I guess is the complaint I had with the conversation later on, is that a lot of the little choices around it were clashing with what the scene's supposed to kind of feel like. And I think there's a few examples of that in the show, so I could do with some tightening up on that. But I mean, that's something
as far as the scene goes, though, like I do enjoy the scene of them all having the discussion of whether or not to bring the Borg into the Federation, which like all the characters have something to say, and it all is very true to their character. Like obviously Seven's like, hold the phone. No, absolutely not. No way ever. And you know, Jurati, because she's a scientist, she's kind of excited about the idea of this, and Picard is unsure because he doesn't want, like, you know, he just brought in the first Romulan into the Federation. Like, do you really deny the Borg just because you have this history with them, or they have this stigma? Like, if they are different now, I mean, I don't really remember what happens to the Borg in Voyager, but I suspect they're not really a threat anymore. So, you know, this is the first time we've really seen them since then. I mean, because technically they're in the first season, but like not really.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I like the idea of what the conversation is, and I do think it's an interesting concept. I think it's weirdly ruined very quickly, because when the Borg Queen like beams aboard the ship, and
we don't know that it's the Queen, because we don't really see her, but
like presumably the Queen or whatever. But and I will say this: I hate this like Doc Ock arms. Like, do you know what I like about the Borg?
They're in the movie though.
What movie?
First Contact.
Were they? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she's got like tubes that come out of her that act as like kind of like Doc Ock stuff.
Yeah, but did they look lower tech than this? Did they look a bit more old school?
Well, it was a different time, the 90s.
Because the point I was about to make is that what I like about the Borg is just how it does feel like they've taken bits and pieces of technology from different places and stuck it together. It has that kind of techno, almost Tetsuo Iron Man, like cyberpunk
we're
feel.
Too far away from that now.
I hate this sleek ass shit. This sleek Borg with the sleek mask and the completely sleek suit.
I think it looks cool, actually. Like, do I prefer the Borg with all the tubes coming out of them and like the very just pieced together, like just scrap metal look of them? Like, yes, I do. I think that's scarier. I think this is definitely sleeker.
The comparison this is...
Fine, go ahead.
No, the comparison this is the Iron Man suit from the first Iron Man movie versus the Iron Man suit from Endgame. The more high-tech it got, when it turned into nanobots that could just magically like reform and completely go together, it got less and less interesting, to the point where it was just boring to look at, right? What made that first suit so satisfying was the mechanical clicking into place. There was like understandable parts of it.
That's this future now. Like, everything is touchscreen, not even touchscreen, and like projected screen that you can touch. There's no switches, there's no clicks, nothing goes tick 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 when you move it, or there's no dials. Like, everything is slick, everything is nanites. And you just gotta deal that we're not there anymore, man. I get it. I miss those times too. I do. I love that tactile feel. I love the idea of like somebody who's turned you into part machine because they've just literally attached things to you. They have attached they've taken apart a lawn mowing machine and they've put those scraps in you like some sort of Cenobite versus like some virus that actually just infects your blood, and all of a sudden you have these parts that just show up and stuff like that.
Cyber Cenobite's a very good way to describe the Borg, actually. Cyber Cenobite.
Yeah, like one is definitely scarier than the other. The other feels like technology has just taken over you like a computer.
For the record, though, as much as I was saying, because we went on a bit of a tangent about ship design and stuff because you brought up the carpets, right? I don't actually mind the design of the ship though that much. Like I said, it's more the camera choices and things and like how it's been directed that I'd rather they deal with rather than the design. The ship looks fine. It's just the Borg specifically. I think sleek just actively goes against what was appealing about them in the first place because they weren't sleek, and that's a shame to me. When this like Borg queen or whatever member of the Borg this was, I just kind of was like, oh, this looks like a generic villain that shows up at the start of a crappy action movie or a crappy sci-fi movie.
I agree that I like the traditional look of the Borg. Like I do. I think we've already established that. And I like the traditional look of just a cube in space because they don't care about design. They just care about function. And I love that.
Exactly. That's the key point there. They don't care about how things look. It's all about the function.
But it also makes sense, like if they assimilate technology that is sleeker, that they'll also get sleeker. Like it doesn't like the traditional Borg doesn't fit in this version of Star Trek. We just gotta get past it. I have. And I actually think that this
I don't have to get past it. I'm allowed to be disappointed. I'm allowed to not like it.
Okay. Well, I think that this creature that has beamed on board the Stargazer is very intriguing looking, and I want to know what's inside it. They're telling me it's a Borg queen, but I don't suspect it because we don't see her face. So
it's a little bit of shit. That's all I'm just going to say. It's a little bit of shit. Star Trek.
It looks like some sort of like sentinel or something.
No, Joe, it's like 3 steps away from the Angel from season 2 of Discovery. It's just the featureless like mystery person in a suit. Like, why do all these new Star Trek shows have to have this weird mystery at the center of every single storyline that has to be revealed?
Because it's not an episode by episode thing anymore. It's now the whole season is connected.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have you never seen a TV show that's serialized? It doesn't need to have a mystery to uncover over the season.
Over the whole season? No. Not in these science fiction shows that we watch.
We'll watch more TV then, because they don't all rely on it, okay?
Well, look, I watched Star Trek. We're almost done with Babylon 5, and that's got a mystery throughout the whole series.
No, but not like this, though. That's not like episode 1 of a new season. Here's a mysterious thing that we're going to spend this season obsessing over. Like, that's not how that show operates.
No, but it is there. Like, there is an overarching mystery and goal that they're working toward.
Well, yeah, the villains have a goal that's mysterious, and there's mysterious. I'm not saying you can't have any mystery.
How long until we didn't see the shadows, and all that stuff?
It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, right?
This episode was great. I had a great time. You seem awfully negative about it, and I don't know why.
Because it was just okay. It was mediocre at best.
No, I thought it was pretty good.
There was too many things that I didn't like. Too many things. So yeah, I didn't really like the design of Borgie McBorgison, who comes aboard the ship at the end. Basically, despite the fact that they wanted to join the Federation, seconds later, connects out of the computers, starts like sucking out juice. Everyone shows up with phasers and starts fighting.
Because they mentioned that the new ship, the Stargazer, has Borg technology in it, presumably because they've been, deconstructing the Borg cube, and they're like, well, the Borg aren't really a threat. Let's use this technology, and that allows this Borg person to connect into the ship and basically start taking over things. Yeah, and not just that, but like all the ships around.
Now, don't get me wrong. Based on this season on Picard at the end, right? Clearly, like when they say they want to join the Federation, they want to do it in a way that's not as upfront as everyone. Normally it's we will join the Federation by submitting an application and then we'll debate it, right? They're going to do it via time travel shenanigans.
We would like to assimilate into your Federation.
Yes, they're going to use time travel shenanigans, which was a surprise. Honestly, the coming up this season on at the end.
I didn't watch it.
I did. it was a surprise to me what type of story this was going to be based on this. This first episode did not set me up for what it seems like this main story for this season is going to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know it's time travel because I watched a trailer for the Picard season 2, but I didn't watch the whatever came on at the end of the episode.
They're coming to present day, basically. I mean, it's like 2024, but I mean that's basically present day. Yeah. Do you know what that is? That's like, oh, we hope that's far enough ahead that we can ignore pandemic stuff. We hope the pandemic's done so we don't have to reference it.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that. You're right, though.
Yeah, that's probably why it's a couple of years in the future. I mean, they might reference it a little bit, but I'm assuming they don't want to have to like constantly have people with masks in the background or stuff like that. So
well, extras want to be seen.
So that's probably why. But I was not expecting, based on this first episode, because I didn't really watch the trailers, that this was going to be their version of Voyage Home or whatever, where they come to present day. Now, it is interesting for the perspective of me, and then you as, I mean, it probably happened in some of the later shows, but this is the first time I'll be watching a Star Trek where they come to present day, and I'm watching it when it was made, so it's actually my present day. As when I watched Voyage Home, like I wasn't even born when that came out, so I mean, it's
there's a Voyager episode that does it too, and Sarah Silverman's in it, so I was around when I watched that.
Sarah Silverman was in an episode of Voyager. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's a
Get
surprise.
This, she's the comic relief.
I'm shocked. But yeah, so I was not prepared for that to be where this was going. But thinking back to what the Borg is doing here, it seems like they're using all this power because they're going to do some time travel. It looks like there's a bit of a Back to the Future 2 thing where they've messed up history, and that's why the team have to go back and stop it. They've kind of turned it into a bit of a, Fourth Reich kind of things happening.
Yes. But not before Picard blows up the ship by using a really easy code. I thought that was the worst password ever, Picard. It's like, blow up the ship, code 000 Picard 0. Like, you couldn't put any other numbers in there, Picard? Maybe like
he's too old. He can't remember the numbers anymore. He has to just keep it simple.
I don't know why he has a code to self-destruct the ship that's not his anyway.
I assume it's a blanket thing that an admiral can use in any ship.
What? That's cool.
It's not like it's a ship.
Retired animals?
Yeah. Although you think that the captain or someone would have to cooperate and because whenever we've seen self-destruct before, the first officer, whoever, always has to confirm the order and say, no, yes, this is like a tip. They have to turn the keys together. You love that shit.
I do. I love the double authenticator.
So yes, it explodes, but
it would have been nice if Rios had one also. Yeah.
Picard wakes up and he's like in his childhood, home, and he's looking up at the stars from the window, and then he hears the voice of Q, and I know people like that they de-age Q, and then he snaps his fingers and he's like, oh, I'll match you, Picard, and he turns into an older version, what the actor actually looks like.
It. I can't imagine you would have any issue with this, but go ahead.
Well, it's okay. My problem with it is that they tried to justify why Guinan's older earlier in the episode, so I think that completely devalued this. Because now it was the second time in the same episode that they had to explain why someone who's not supposed to age has aged. And it felt cheap because of that, because they'd done it twice.
They definitely shouldn't have had the Guinan line in there. That was like, it wasn't necessary. Like, no one's gonna really question it if you don't bring it up.
Because it feels in character for Q to do this. Because I don't think it feels out of character for him.
Q's always done that. He's always been like, I want to wear a Starfleet outfit. I want to match you guys. That makes sense.
But Guinan's line was like, oh, the clientele, don't want to be weirded out about their mortality. So I try to keep appearances with them, and I'm like,
Valorians can just age if they choose to. Like, why would you ever choose to then?
Weird. So because that already happened when he did this at the end, I was like, oh, here's another excuse, rather than just enjoying it for the small little...
I did like seeing him de-age though. I thought he looked good. It was a good de-age. I mean, he was far back and stuff. Yeah, it was so quick that he switched to himself, and he still looks good. Like, he looks good with the goatee. He looks like he's got energy. He's not as fun and playful as he used to be as Q, but at least in this one moment that we get with him. But he's it was nice to see a healthy looking older actor. Is that cruel?
I mean, I don't think it's because I don't think Patrick Stewart's unhealthy. He's just that old.
No, that's what I mean. Like by health, I mean like he's not in his 110s.
Patrick Stewart's been old, quote unquote, for a long time, and now he's actually really old now. Where he sounds different. He's speaking slower. He's not quite got the same. It's hard to just kind of like get into because of that, I think. But yeah, so
when he doesn't speak though, he looks awesome.
Well, Patrick Stewart?
Picard. Yeah, like when Picard's just like he's having a look with Guinan. She's like, I know that look, and he looks serious. I'm like, oh, there's Picard. I like that.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because I felt like this episode did nothing to set me up for the plot of the season that I then saw in this like trailer at the end of the episode. And the trailer at the end of the episode seems like, okay, that's maybe like a fun adventure that's kind of focused, and I appreciate that. And by the way, so I because I'd forgotten so much of season one, I watched the recap. Tara sent me a recap of season one just to refresh my memory, and I had forgotten how much I hated the villains in season one. Those lame Romulans.
They're not here.
The brother and sister. Oh my god, they were terrible.
Yeah, I didn't like them either.
Oh dear. So I'm so glad they're not there.
But I didn't like them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things I didn't like about season one, but this, like, I think the plot this season does seem like it has potential, and I will say that I like that it's mostly just ignoring season one. It kind of like, yeah, there's a couple of lines referencing things, and like Jurati's like little exposition sort of like hand waving away like why it's okay that I'm still working with everyone and I'm not like in prison for being a murderer or something. Like it just kind of feel like, oh, we're just going to quickly sweep any season one stuff under the rug. We're moved on. Here's a new adventure. Here we are, which is fine to a point. But there's still all these little problems that I would say I have with it. Even though the fun of the potential premise does seem alright, but this episode doesn't really set it up. Although I assume Q is going to be the one that kind of helps them go back, I imagine, or something.
Well, presumably he should be dead. Or like Picard should be dead because the ship blows up. And instead he goes back to Chateau Picard, and there's an android there to assist him instead of Laris, the Romulan lady.
Well, so you think... Well, everyone else has to survive, unless he goes back and takes them from just before they all died on the ship. So if you're thinking this is like another android Picard that Q is like brought into existence and said, hey, go collect all your teammates from just before they died and go back in time to 2024 to save the day.
First of all, Q says, a lot of his catchphrases, which is fun, Mon Capitaine, the trial never ends. And then he also says the road not taken, which is another episode they haven't seen yet. That's great. With Q and Picard about, what if Picard made a different decision and like pursued this girl he was into in the academy instead of like going after his career, and where he would be now instead. And he's not captain, he's not the Picard that we know. He's kind of meek. And so I think that episode is being referenced when he says that. And, this show seems to be setting up like his history with the women in his life and why he doesn't have a love in his life. And so, yeah, anyway, I just think that that's what this episode is, or this show is referencing also.
I loved it. I was waiting for your point.
I was trying to have a thought.
Yeah, I was waiting for your point. And you decided to just bail at the end.
It's so hard because you haven't watched the whole show yet. Like, you haven't finished watching Next Generation, or at least the big episodes
that
it's my fault. Are for Picard. Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's just hard to have a conversation about that where you could be like, I get what you're trying to say, and maybe I can help you focus on this point a little bit better.
Okay.
So I don't know. It seems like there's a lot going on in this season. There's going to be time travel shenanigans, Q shenanigans, which probably are related, Borg shenanigans, Picard reflecting on his life and the road not taken as far as his love life is concerned. And we'll see. I'm excited. Like, I really legit enjoyed watching this episode. And all the things that you disliked, like, yeah, okay, they're nitpicks for me, but they're not like anything that's taking me out of the show. Like, I'm still very interested in what's happening and how they're going to,
it's also
get through this.
Climbing back up, because I think the end of season 1 was legit bad. Like, just straight up bad. Like, I don't think there was any redeeming qualities of the last couple of episodes of season 1. And it was a very mixed bag for me throughout, but the last couple of episodes I just thought were bad. So this, it has to kind of win me over. It has to kind of prove itself. And I would say it's done that yet. I do think there's potential in the premise of the season. There's moments where, like, Picard's giving a speech at Starfleet. He's all the recruits are graduating. And Samurai, what's his name, Elnor. He's like the first Romulan who's graduated Starfleet, and it's a big deal. And he gives him a book that was written by Spock and all the rest of it. But as he's giving his speech, and it's like really sentimental, like, overly sentimental, which is something that I kind of harp on Discovery a little bit for as well, is everything being a bit too nice at times.
I actually thought his speech was kind of subpar, not because it was overly sentimental, but it was just like, I'm going to leave you with words that my mother gave me, which is look up. Okay. I don't know. It's a bit anticlimactic. When Picard gives a speech, you kind of have high expectations.
Yeah. And has he even had a good speech in this show yet? Did he have any good speeches in season 1?
Season 1 was a long time ago. I don't remember.
I don't remember any good speeches.
I want to say that he did when he was doing the interview with the lady that was trying to sabotage him. And he was having a conversation about what Starfleet was supposed to be.
Okay. Oh well, that's episode 1. That went long. I can't believe we went 50 minutes on.
You're welcome.
On Picard episode 1. Oh dear.
I'm surprised we didn't go over the hour.
It's going to be a long season.
Well, come on, it's the first episode.
I don't mean that. I mean, I'm referring to the reviews more than the show itself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's the first episode. We have a lot to talk about.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of good cop, bad cop, shall we call it.
We could be good cop, good cop.
Or you could stop living in the clouds and it could be bad cop, bad cop.
Hey, don't yuck my yum, all right?
What? You're what?
Don't you yuck my yum.
I will... Shut up.
It's an American thing, I guess.
Yes, well... Lots of questionable things come out of America. I'm adding that phrase to the list. Yuck My Yum and Kid Rock. They're on the same list. Deal with it. Alright, that is Picard episode 1 of season 2. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. Tara just took a sip of her wine, and she said before we started that she might or might not drink it. And I like the idea that I have driven her to alcohol.
I brushed my teeth. So it was, drinking red wine after you brush your teeth is kind of nasty.
Yes. It's alright though, I drove her to the booze, it's fine.
I'm just celebrating. Picard is back. Thank you.
Yes, like, subscribe, ding the bell, notifications. You can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. Keep all the content coming. Obviously, we're still reviewing Star Trek Discovery Season 4 as well. We chose to prioritize this. So Star Trek Discovery's review probably won't be out till Monday. But, but we thought we'd try and get one of them out a little bit earlier. So here's Picard. Have it today, which is probably Saturday. So, thank you. We'll see you soon. Keep watching television. And have you got... And yes, I almost forgot I forgot what show I was on there, so I had to think of what my catchphrase was. So yes, have you got any vanilla?